Hey everyone, and welcome to the Unmodern Podcast, the podcast where we have unscripted, unapologetic, and uncomfortable conversations that affects everyday people. If you've ever had an outlook, thought, or an opinion that modern day society told you to be silent on, that you would get in trouble for, or if you've ever heard the words, probably shouldn't say that, then this is the podcast for you. My name is Alfred, a husband, father, and an adventure-seeking kind of guy who over the years has learned to have a positive outlook on life, regardless of what society throws at me. So if you're ready to listen, let's go. Jarek, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I love it, dude. I love how you're so nervous, and we just had this discussion where you'd rather talk in a room of 100 people than talk into this microphone.
I'm way more comfortable in front of people than a microphone.
Okay.
So
you don't speak into a microphone at these events?
Not really. I mean, you're mic'd up, but I don't know. It's just you're talking to an audience. You see their feedback, and you get you can feed off their energy, and so it's a lot different. I mean, obviously you got great energy, but it's just you and I are locking eyes and speaking into a microphone. So
that's awesome. I think that speaks to what you do for a living and who you are as a person. You're very people oriented. You know, I'll bring up some stuff here, but real quick, if you want to introduce yourself to anybody who's listening, if you want to talk about where you're from, what you do, what your interests are, open mic, man, whatever you want to let people in on.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Camrose, Alberta. And growing up, my parents always kind of ingrained in me, go to school, get a good education. And, as I'm going through life and growing up and wondering what I want to do after high school, I wasn't really sure. I didn't have the best marks growing up. So that kind of prohibited some opportunities, but I love sports. And my mom was a teacher. My dad was a chef. And my dad always said, never become a chef. It wasn't the best lifestyle that he wanted to push on us. And like I said, I love sports, so I thought I'd follow my mom's footsteps, become a teacher, but throw dodgeballs at kids for the rest of my life. So I applied at Augustana down in Camrose with a Bachelor Arts in Physical Education, and I got accepted, and I went down this path, but I wasn't overly thrilled about it. I didn't really like school, and here I am going to school to, go to school for the rest of my life, essentially. And so during school, I went to New York for 4 summers, and I worked at a kids camp. While I was going to school, I was working at Eastside Mario's surfing. So that's kind of like my work experience. And in my last semester, an old high school friend had approached me, and I hadn't seen him in about 4 years. And he's like, I'm in the financial industry now, and you got to come check it out. And so I did that, and I kind of fell in love with what I saw. And I wasn't sure what it really would look like or what it all entailed. But like I said, I wasn't crazy about becoming a gym teacher. So I started kind of like a twin career part-time basis and fell in love with what we do. That was back in 2008, and people, they were struggling with money and finance, and more than ever today, they're struggling. So it just hasn't got better. And it's quite the rewarding and fulfilling career when you can teach someone about money, and something that is such a life skill that we should all learn, and we just never been taught for the most part, or at least taught properly. So I jumped in, I finished my degree, and then went full-time after that. Got my own agency within about 3 years of that, and it's been good. Within this time of the last 15-ish years, I met my wife in the business. We had a couple kids. We got divorced right before COVID actually hit. In September 2019, we split, and it was crazy because, obviously COVID, March of whatever, 2020, and you're in lockdown mode. And so we lived together from September of 2019 till August of 2020. Where you couldn't go anywhere, and you're locked up with your ex. So that was interesting. It could have been worse, that's for sure. And so we split, and I share my boys 50-50, week on, week off. I'm grateful for the position I'm in, that I can have that time with them. I don't put them in daycare or anything like that. I'm with them when they're with me, and I work when they're not with me. And so that's been good. Other than that, I'm still into sports and athletics and fitness, and I run a charity hockey game. I started that about 12 years ago, and we play Edmonton versus Calgary offices. We get our butts kicked almost every single year, our record's 2-8, but we raised a lot of money. So since this 4th year of doing it, we basically raised money for the Stollery. We did some other charities in between a little bit, but it's been the Stollery Children's Hospital here in Edmonton, and we've raised over $500,000 for them in the last 6 years or so.
That's incredible.
So yeah, so that keeps me busy. I'm into hockey still. I just got off the ice, like I told you, but hot yoga, weights, bit of cardio, just staying active, paddleboarding. I like it all. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack all that individually. I kind of have a list here because, yeah, you got a lot of stuff that I really want to touch on. I guess the first thing is kind of how we first met. I think we first met about 9 years ago. I still remember it was at a Starbucks in Terwilliger. We kind of sat down for the first time and met. And I'm not going to lie, like most industries that aren't really taught in school or that you're not really given a lot of stuff, I thought it was snake oil for sure. And the reason being is I feel like there's a recruitment component to finance. You see this a lot in Primerica. You see this a lot in all of these quote unquote pyramid schemes. And I'm not even going to unpack that today. But there's this negative connotation, I think, to the average person that doesn't understand what that is, building a team rather than recruiting for financial gain and almost like a gym model where you're expecting people to fail, but they have a buy-in price and it's all about numbers. And there may be an evil backdoor component to that, but I don't think that's the front end aspect of it. Like you said, that was my first impression. Yeah. And so there was a ton of resistance for me. Yeah. And the resistance came from me not understanding. So what was my response to that? I kept doing the same old shit. And 4 years later, I'm like, I made all this money and I have nothing to fucking show for it. Yeah. My education around finances was dumb because I associated negatively to the non-big five bank aspects of it. The people that can actually give you a product tailor-made to you because they assess your individual needs, not only the product you have with that individual bank or individual institution. So that for me, and that might be other people's resistance too, but I don't know if you want to unpack that, your experience first getting into finance and then what you kind of learn down the road and how you bring value to whoever you interact with, whether that's your team or the customer component itself.
Well, that's a hell of a lot to unpack there. So I guess I'll start off by saying when my friend approached me, I wasn't skeptical at all. I was 22 years old and he's just like, you got to come check this out. He was excited, and which in turn made me excited. And people were like, oh, well, that's a pyramid scheme. I'm like, I don't know what a pyramid scheme is. Like, I never heard of that before. Right. And so, I was kind of naive, and I think maybe that helped me just kind of get started. So when I initially started in business, I got a whole bunch of flack from my buddies and family members and stuff too. And I just knew something that they didn't. Right. And so I get it. I mean, it's, there's a lot of things out there today. Right. And get rich quick and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, it is hard work. Money and finance, financial planning, whatever you want to call it, it's very simple. A lot of people think it's complicated, but the reason they do is because we've never been taught. We've never been taught what a tax-free savings account is, what an RSP is, what life insurance is, how it works. And so a lot of people think that's just, it's scary. You got to go to school and you got to it's years of education, but it's really simple to teach someone some basic concepts around money and finance and something called the rule of 72 of compound interest. And so we're not taught this stuff. And when I started, I was just, like I said, I think I was naive. I was coachable. I just kind of did what my trainer, my mentor had told me. And the hardest part about what we do in our industry is mental toughness. It's getting rejected. It's handling the nose. And that's why a lot of people can't do it, is because they're afraid of what people think, or they're addicted to approval. And so, it's, oh man, there's so much to unpack here. So I guess for me, I learned a lot in the early stages the wrong way, or the hard way, I should say, meaning that I probably didn't master my craft in certain areas, and I learned from experience, which is obviously a great teacher, but maybe I could have had better results if I would have practiced or honed my skills a bit more. But that's just life. You fail and you learn and grow. And so, I don't know. I think I might have missed 30 questions you had asked for me there. But
yeah, not a lot of questions. Just, I want to kind of give you the table, because this is definitely a topic for me that as I get older, I just turned 35 and call it a middle-age crisis. And perhaps rather than buying a Camaro, I decided to bring you on here to maybe give me some fucking insight on how to get ahead in life a little bit. Because truly, I think you said, it's something that's not taught. And I think Alberta, when Jason Kenney was in office, they tried to change the either middle school or high school curriculum to include financial training. And there was a lot of abrasion around it. I think the abrasion was more around some of the other stuff they tried to include in there, like maybe minority training and kind of getting back to basics. I actually think that was a term used by conservative MLA in Alberta. And I find that strange. I find that strange why there wouldn't be a drive to want to educate kids and even family members on this sort of thing. Because I truly think we have lost our basics. We have lost our ability to see something like a TFSA or an RSP or spousal RSPs, which is never talked about, as an add-on. Whereas if you replace something with it, that's when you're going to get further ahead because you're almost winning on both ends of the spectrum. So if you create a really tight budget and now with your excess, you don't use that as well, I've earned it because I created a budget, so now I'm going to go blow it on some dumb shit. Well, if you actually use that money strategically or use that excess strategically, you're winning double. And I think that's what the problem is people don't want to change their status quo. They want to add on. So Jarek's trying to sell me on a product saying, do you have $350 a month to go to TFSA? And you're like, okay, well, how do I add $350 to my life rather than let's get $350 more efficient, meaning you're cleaning up your excess, but then you're using that to the best of your ability. I don't know if you want to unpack that a little bit. That's my perception of it.
Here's the problem today, more than ever. Today, it's keeping up with the Joneses. People want the fastest, the brightest, the shiniest, the biggest. And it's just because it's all around us. Social media, what's what we're fed as to what is cool or what is good or whatever it may be. And if you think of like how accessible things and products are today, as opposed to like when we were growing up, right? If you wanted to go get something or need something, like, so I grew up in Camrose. So we had a lot of the amenities and stores and stuff. But for example, I remember school shopping. There wasn't a lot of good clothing stores in Camrose, so we'd have to come up to Edmonton, whatever. So you'd have to find time and drive up to Edmonton and all this kind of stuff. But now you can just order it online. It's right to your door. Or it's as simple as something on Amazon, right? There's a lot of shit we buy on Amazon that we don't need. But it's because it's right there and we can just click and it's at our door the next day or maybe even later that day. So it's just the ease of accessibility to products which I think has started to kill people. And we no longer need cash. We can tap on our watch. We can tap with our credit card. And it's just so easy to do that. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people are struggling today is because of what they see on social media, what they think is cool, what they think they need. In the 90s, when you grew up, how many people had the same like t-shirt and pants and whatever? Because, you know, there's so many clothing stores. You go to the Bay, the Zellers, whatever, Sears. But now it's like, there's so much clothing in the world. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. And like so many options, obviously we won't get into this topic, but kids bullying these days. I mean, I was bullied as a kid and just picked on for clothes and stuff. So like there's so much that society needs help with. But when it comes to money and finance, I think that's one of the biggest things where people are trying to keep up with the Joneses. You know, I live on a street here in Edmonton that gets done up like crazy for Halloween and Christmas. And like people spend thousands of dollars on decorations and it's cool. Like it's festive and it's fun, but one person gets those gemstone lights, the next person in their, you know, soffit or whatever it is. And the next thing you know, you see all these lights in houses because their neighbor got it. Right. And so it's crazy because in 15 years of me doing this business and sitting down with people, their finances have not got better. People are struggling more than ever and they don't make enough, they don't save enough, and they've lost time. That's the biggest thing. You know, it's for someone to eat, to give you an example, if people are like, oh yeah, I'm on track for retirement, right? Well, here's a good measuring stick. Assuming you want to eat in retirement, you want to eat 3 meals a day, 365 days a year for 20 years. So let's just say you want to retire at the age of 65 and you're going to live till 85. And if you spend $5 a meal, right? That can't even buy a friggin' Happy Meal these days.
Yeah.
But $5 a meal for a couple, that's $219,000. Do you know how many people I sit down with that are 65 that have $219,000 in their savings? Not many, right? So it's going to be pretty scary what the landscape looks like for baby boomers over the next 10, 20, 30 years. They're going to be working till the day they die, right? And the younger generation coming up, a lot of them, they're not taught, they're not thinking about it. There's a huge need for financial education today. And yeah, just teaching people how money works and getting time on their side.
To challenge that a little bit from my perspective, not being in the financial industry, I think this can relate to everything that really you've excelled at. You talked about mental toughness. We're going to touch on your passion for fitness and your success in fitness and what you've done to stay fit as a man and as a dad. Everybody has social media. but people excel better than others. Everybody has accessibility issues. You weren't taught about finance. My daughter isn't taught about finance. Are we able to drill it down past that, past the societal headlines of, do you think it just has to get down to basic discipline? Do you think it has to get down to us no longer using the word no in society, basically? What in your mind can you dumb it down for almost the finance for dummies type kind of statement and basically say, like, this is really what's lacking? Is it just self-discipline? Is it mental toughness? Is it kind of a little bit of both of those things? Because everything you mentioned, I think everybody has access to these days. My niece and nephew have access to social media. And while I think we're in the age of information and information is great, I think the way we digest it is a problem. I think you're not going to learn something to its nth degree in 15-second reels on Instagram. That's for damn sure, right? And that goes to fitness, right? You can't buy a 6-minute ab package and expect to get 6-minute abs. It doesn't fucking work. Yeah. And I think that's my perspective, but I don't know from your financial perspective, what is something when you meet two clients in one day, one has had a smaller income, but they have a larger savings bank. They're more content with their life. They're on track. They follow the recipe or the blueprint. And this other rig worker, maybe divorcee, and I know divorce is a big one these days that really kind of can throw a wrench into people's plans. But I heard a really cool quote on a podcast that compared OnlyFans or porn models to NFL players. And he talked about how when you earn money using your body and not your mind, you're not taught the disciplines mentally and how to do it. That's why NFL stars go bankrupt. That's why porn stars go bankrupt. That's why Hollywood stars go bankrupt. When you've used it with your body and superficial skills, and I'm not calling athleticism superficial, but just not using this, and maybe using a little bit of heart and courage and bravery and whatever you want to call it, that seems to be the downside to a lot of people. I mean, athletes have financial managers, they have all this stuff, and they still find a way to fuck it up. Yeah. Yet you have this grain worker that's worked in the same hamlet in Alberta for 50 years, and he retires with $2.5 million. So what distinguishes those two individuals, right? Yeah. What is it?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the biggest one is mindset, because you're right. We do have all the tools access to us. I mean, you open up your phone or your computer, you type this website called Google, and you'll find anything, right? So it's not that people have a lack of resources. It's a lack of an intention and mindset in terms of wanting to get it done. Saving money isn't sexy. It's not. You put $50 away, $100 a month away, and that grows a little bit. It's crazy because people they take more time planning a 7-day vacation than they will their 20, 30-year vacation called retirement, because it's instant gratification. That's the world we live in. It's a microwave society. So I think it all comes down to mindset. Someone knowing why they're putting away $100 a month. They know what that goal looks like. They know what that's going to grow to when they're 65, in 20, 30, 40 years. And what I find is that there's kind of a sweet spot, probably between $5,000 and $15,000, $20,000 that people get to, where they kind of see it grow a little bit and they're looking at it, they're like, $15,000, it's not a lot, but it could sure pay off this, or it could sure buy me this, or it should. So they don't stick with it, right? So it's like, I like the analogy of soap. Money's like soap. Your investments are like soap. The more you touch it, the less you have.
Oh shit, I like that.
Right? So it's something that people just have to stay disciplined in, and knowing why they're doing it. That's the biggest thing, right? And that goes for all areas in life, but it's like, here's my goal. Here's my habits that I'm doing to get there. And so that's what I would probably say with that. I don't know if that would give you an answer. But.
Yeah, I think so. Delayed gratification, I think, is a measure of success in almost anything you do, right? Fitness, relationships, everything, right? Why am I having this dinner night with my wife when I really don't want to, or we just had a fight or something? Well, you're hardening that relationship and making it withstand the test of time. Same thing with fitness. Why the fuck am I going into this 40-degree room and doing these downward dog poses and wanting to pass the fuck out? And then you come out and you're like, where's my six-pack? It's not there. It's like, but if you do it enough and you stick with it and you're consistent, eventually, and it's different for everybody, genetics and diet and all that stuff. But I think, it's delayed gratification. That's something I've been trying to apply in my life, because it's not easy. Like you said, every time I open up Instagram, somebody bought a new fucking truck. Somebody's in this new sunny destination. Somebody just bought a new fucking house. It's hard because there is that measuring stick of what is your social image, and there is some fakeness. And I consider myself a traditionalist at heart, but I fall victim to that social media shit all the time. I'm always wanting to put fancy pictures and celebrate my wins, and hopefully people are liking it. And when I get that notification, it's that dopamine kick of bang, ooh, somebody's acknowledging what I did. That's the hard part, I think, for most people, is to get away from that.
Well, it also comes down to associations. Like if you think about your friend circle, like how often do you talk about money and finance? If your friends are talking about saving for retirement and what their retirement's going to look like, there's a better chance of you doing that. But if your friends are talking about vacations all the time and spend and spend and spend and buy, then that's probably what you're going to do. Right. So that's a huge one. Right. And I love, if you hang around 5 clowns, you're eventually going to join the circus. Yeah. So,
oh man, you're dropping these analogies and it's preaching to me, man. I'm loving this. Let's go. I'm so stoked you said that, because I actually wrote down here some highlights of talking points, and I had one on here where I actually wrote down people or products of their environment. And I think you just touched on it, because there's an old phrase by some really rich guy. He's kind of a polarizing figure, but he basically said, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you your future. I don't know if he's the originator of that statement, but we'll kind of use this to maybe segue away from finance, but how it's applicable is, what would be some quick ways that you would suggest to people on how to change your environment really quickly? Because I think we are somewhat in a loner style environment structure these days. Everything is individualized. We've lost our sense of community, and, we can blame everything on COVID, and this is definitely a repercussion of it, but people are really expected to make things work within a marriage, within your own self, within your own relationship, or with your own kids. And we're not these social beings that we used to be, right? We don't have these community relations anymore. I remember you talked about growing up in Camrose. I grew up in a hamlet in Nova Scotia. It's not even a fucking town. It's a hamlet. Yeah. And if somebody's roof needed to be repaired, there was 20 people that showed up with tools. Not because they called 20 people, because these people knew. They had their finger on the pulse of what the community needed as a whole and where the weak links were, because people knew in my community, in my society, we're only as strong as our weakest link. Mm-hmm. If somebody is struggling, how can we sit there and be proud of the community we call home or the community we've built? Well, we can't. So they step up to the plate, and it's that thankless service. I'm not doing this for me. It's that delayed gratification of, when this person reaches a new level, they're going to bring all of us with it, and so on and so forth. And you're kind of just following this kind of snakes and ladders type all the way up to the top, and everyone eventually, and you're obviously going to have people that lag, but you're going to reach that. So we definitely don't have that in comparison now. Is it possible to have that in metropolises? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. But what's a quick way that you would maybe suggest to people where, if people are wanting to change with their environment, or they have some toxic friends, aside from the cut them off at the knees, because I'm not sure if that's the appropriate way to do it, especially with family, but what are some ways that you would suggest with either finance or fitness, or any way, just because people are products of their environment, what's a quick way that they can maybe switch that up?
That's a really good question. So I'll give you an example of when I started in business. I had some really good friends that I went to high school with, college with, that type of thing. And they weren't really supportive with what I was doing. And it's kind of like barrels of monkeys. These monkeys try to get out of the barrel, and their other ones are trying to pull them back into the barrel type of thing. Because you're either trying to do something great with your life and they're not. So it's a reflection on them. And or you're just out of their comfort zone. So they want to bring you back into their comfort zone. Like, why aren't you coming out and party with us on Friday night? Why aren't you with us Saturday night? So what happened was that I slowly just stopped communicating with these guys over a period of time. I wouldn't reach out, I'd see them here and there, but I slowly just got into a circle, or I surrounded myself with people that I wanted to be like, that I wanted to emulate, that were better than me. And that could be from a business perspective, from a fitness standpoint, financial. I knew what I wanted, and I knew that if I hung around some people, I'd eventually figure it out. It's just like, I'm a big hockey fan. So if you're a little kid and you go to the rink and you're just hanging around, I remember back in the Max McLean Arena in Camrose, all these pucks would go over the glass, and I don't think there was netting at the time. So you'd go and pick up all these pucks, and you're just like hanging out, and you're playing mini sticks and all this kind of stuff, and smelling the equipment and smelling the deep fryer. And so you're hanging around the environment, and you hear conversations, you watch the plays, and you just pick up on the game. So that is a lot better than someone just sitting at home wishing that they were a hockey player, or wishing that they were on the ice. And so you just have to find whether it be a circle of friends or people or an environment, and just put yourself in there, just hang out, right? And just be a bug on the wall, if you will, and absorb it. So that's probably, like, you just have to do it. That's the only thing I would say is, like, just go and do it. Don't wait for some sort of outside circumstance to do it for you. Just take action. So
I think it's very applicable in most things in people's life, but especially nowadays, people are scared to go to the gym because they'll get made fun of. They have this irrational fear, actually, of something that hasn't happened yet. They're just kind of making up this story in their head of why they might fail or why they might. And even if you do get made fun of, who the fuck cares?
Well, if you go to a gym, it's an intimidating place for men, for women, for everyone. But the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door. As soon as you get your butt in the door, you're bound to do something. It's very rare that you're going to go on the treadmill and stand on the sides and just let that thing run. You're probably going to at least walk on the treadmill. So you just got to get to the gym. There's that big guy on Instagram who just says, get the fuck to the gym, right? I don't know if you've seen that guy, but you just got to get yourself there, get in the environment. And whether people judge or not, it doesn't matter, right? Everyone starts somewhere. What I think people find is that, obviously depending on the gym that you go to and the type of people there, but it's a community that, I think if you're struggling and you ask for some help or whatever it may be, more times than not, people will help you, right? When I go, it's a pretty good crowd. I know if you go to like a 5 o'clock, you get some different types of people. I try not to like walk around with that like tough guy look. I don't think that's me, but there's some people that do, right? And I just laugh at it because a lot of it's just an insecurity on their part and they're just trying to like mask. So I kind of laugh and I just try to put on a smile and say hi to people and create that environment that like people I want to be a guy in the gym that people could approach, ask questions, help out, whatever. Right. And I think I've done a very good job at it for the gym I go to.
Yeah. I think that goes to what I said earlier about winning on both sides is I think people need to stop looking at anything they do, like saving money as, well, I'm saving money. Well, no, it's going to result in multiple things. And the same thing with the gym. If you go to the gym just to lift weight or just to run on a treadmill and get out and don't utilize the social component of it, you're not going to build that community that you're yearning for. You're not going to find those 5 people that you might be able to create relationships with. You're not going to find that Jarek guy over in the corner. He's lifting heavier than me, so he's motivating me kind of unbeknownst. But then I go over and talk to him and I have these financial goals and he's like, oh, he's in the finance industry. Holy shit. And so you can win on both sides. The gym isn't just a gym. It's a place where people congregate with a common hobby or a goal or, whatever it may be. I think that's no different than sports, the gym, activities, even women with book club, anything like this, just something that brings people together face to face. And I think that's the critical component is bringing people face to face. You talked about here where this is making you more nervous than talking to 100 people. That goes to speak to you as a person, and exactly what we're discussing is, and I agree, I would rather do things in person. I like having people here in the studio rather than on Zoom. You feel a connection, you feed off their energy, you laugh when they laugh, you maybe cry when they cry. It's different, right? It's way different. You can't turn the monitor off and be like, man, that guy's got a lot of shit going on. Fuck. You're kind of entrapped in there, right? But you feel it. It's a lasting impression. So I think that's really important. So going back to the fitness thing, because you do this fitness thing really, really well. You're a huge proponent of it. It sounds like it was introduced to you at a young age. It was something that was never introduced to me, and I've been struggling with it massively. So we have this really cool push-up challenge going on. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called the Sally Up, Sally Down. David Goggins was the first time I had seen it. So I don't know if you ever heard that song, Bring Sally Up, Bring Sally Down. So basically you follow that song with push-ups, and when you go Sally down, your arms are at 90 degree, but they're about 3 or 5 second holds. And then I think 4 or 5 times in the song, there's like a 15-second hold, but it's 30 push-ups. The song is 30 push-ups. It's fucking hard. Yeah. It's fucking brutal, dude. And we got like 119 guys in this Facebook group that are all going like lives and sending videos and doing all this cool shit. And I just have this fucking abrasion to it, man. I'm just like, why the fuck am I going to set up a phone, do these push-ups, do all this stuff? And I think it goes back to my delayed gratification thing of like, I'm wanting to do it and keep up with the Joneses because my number's a lot lower. And so, like, we got one guy doing it with a weighted vest. This guy's a beast. Like, he's just a monster. But he doesn't look the part. He's not like a fucking Joey Swole or some like Brian Shaw, a massive jack guy. He just kind of looks like you or like similar build. Like he's not but he's just a strong guy because he just sticks with it. It's pretty incredible. And so from your perspective, when people are wanting to get into this fitness industry or fitness, better their life, and I don't know what their goal is, maybe bench more, maybe run longer, maybe all the above, live longer. I think that's most people's goal. What are some things that you can suggest for people to getting into fitness or wanting to get into it, or maybe bring it to another level if they're already involved?
Okay, this is a good one. So I'll start off by talking about a philosophy I try to live my life around. It's called the slight edge. So if you think of 2 lines on a page, and eventually as the line starts going, the top line kind of curves up, but then the bottom line curves down. So the idea behind the slight edge philosophy is that every day you're taking little actions that are so simple to do and so easy not to do, little disciplines or little habits, and compounded over time, it's going to excel you on the path of winning or the path of failure. So for example, let's just say you and I were about the same size and you start going to McDonald's every single day because you just love Big Macs, right? And, I'd make my lunch, I'd eat kind of healthy, I'd watch what I eat. And after the first week, do you think there's much of a difference in body mass between you and I? Probably not, right? But if we go 2, 3, 4 months, then you might start seeing some like fat appear. Maybe you have some grease pouring out of your pores, right? You start smelling like a Big Mac. And then you compound that over a year, 2 years, 3 years, then you really see the difference. And so everything you do in life is either leading you on the path of success or the path of failure. That's kind of like a philosophy. So for me, it comes down to like personal growth. If I'm in my car, am I listening to a good book or podcast, or am I just listening to music? It's going to excel me, right? It doesn't change my life in that instant necessarily. But if I do that for hours and hours and days and months and years on end, I'm going to learn a whole bunch more, right? Same thing with health, food, right? Same thing with fitness. So I think if you have that mindset, that has helped me. Also, it comes down to habits, right? And if you can put yourself in a position to start working out. So for example, there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. So James talks about in the book that there's this guy who is 300 pounds, and he started to want to basically drop some weight and create this habit. And so what a lot of people do, if they want to start something new or they want to just like change their life, they go from like 0 to 100, right? I'm going to stop doing this and start doing this every day of the week. So if you've never worked out before, I would not encourage you to start going to the gym every single day of the week. So this guy, his only thing was that he had to go to the gym for 5 minutes. That's it. So he'd drive to the gym, walk in the door, 5 minutes, lifting weights, treadmill, and then he would leave. And what happened, obviously, is that doesn't do much for him. But over time, he started to take it to 10 minutes, 15, 20, an hour, so on and so forth. He had to just create the habit of getting to the gym. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you can create habits that will help you achieve your goal, that's a good start. So maybe if you're working out at home and you want to work out in the morning, you put your gym shoes, your gym outfit on your nightstand or like somewhere close that you get up, you hop in that stuff and you just like, you get in that zone and the habit of going to work out. Maybe just start 5 minutes like that guy did in the book, or 10 or whatever it is. So that's one of them. I would also say put in your calendar. We're emotional creatures. So if it's in your calendar, you're more likely to do it. So run your life by your calendar and not how you feel. There's so many times that if you wanted to start working out in the morning, you're going to wake up and you're not going to feel like working out. But if you stick to your calendar, then there's a better chance of you doing it. If you're like, yep, it's in my calendar, I've scheduled it, then there's just a higher probability that you're going to go and work out. So don't run your life by how you feel, run your life by your calendar. And that will probably help, with the fitness game.
Yeah. Another part of fitness is wellness or food. And I know this one is an interesting topic because there's so much information out there, man. And I think this is one of the main areas where being in the age of information has destroyed us in that perspective. I actually, sometimes when I go down the social media rabbit hole, I watch videos of guys making fun of he's trying to eat breakfast and finds some sort of online influencer rebuking it. It's like, don't eat eggs. Yeah. They're the worst for you. It's like, okay, he puts that aside, grabs oatmeal. Oatmeal's horse food. It's not meant for, and it just keeps going down the fucking hole. Yep. And it's like, so where does a person get this information? Do you only shop at fucking Whole Foods and buy the most expensive shit? Which it seems like everything is Whole Food prices these days. But where would you suggest a person could possibly start? And I know it's very, very individualized. Are you 300 pounds? Are you 150? Are you a cancer survivor? Are you physically enabled in a certain sense? Maybe at back surgery or spinal fusion or whatever it may be. I can come up with a plethora of examples. But where would you suggest somebody would start really quickly, over a period of a week, kind of curating their food or what they do consume or what they stop consuming? What would be some stuff that you would suggest?
So one thing that worked for me, you're right. There's so much stuff out there and documentaries and whatever. And so right before my wedding, I watched this documentary called, I forget what it was called, but it was about sugar. For example, my coffee had like 2 milk, 1 sugar. And so I just started to like cut out sugar, and I lost 12 pounds. And it's not like I'd like, you'd think I almost didn't have 12 pounds to lose, but I just started to trim up. And so I think sugar is one of the biggest things that help people gain weight, right? So if you can cut out sugar, and a lot of people don't know that sugar exists in pasta sauces, or like, for example, muffins, which are just like glorified cake in a muffin form. But if you can start reducing your sugar, that's going to help you feel better. It's going to help you look better. And hey, I get it. We're all human. We like the sweets and whatever, but that I would say that's a big one. I don't believe that diets work, right? When someone's like, I'm going to go on a vegan diet, or I'm going to go on a whatever diet, because they're cutting something out of their life. And unless it's a lifestyle change, there's a good chance it's not going to sustain, right? If you're like, I'm going to eat meat, oh, there's a carnivore diet, like whatever. Like, there's so many. So I think you just have to find what works for you, what makes you feel good. And there's a lot of noise out there. You're going to be distracted. You're going to go down these. I mean, I had some buddies at the office a few years ago, and they started intermittent fasting. So one guy says it and he says, oh, this is what it is. And another guy does it. And so then there's like a group of them that are intermittent fasting. And I'm like, this isn't going to last. And sure enough, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, however long it was, hey, you guys still doing that? Nah. Well, yeah, it's not sustainable, right? But for me, sugar, I can reduce that, right? I can start taking it out. Deep fried foods is another one, right? It's a lot of it's common sense. And we do love that instant gratification. So yeah, it does, I'd rather have like chips and dip type of thing over some sugar. So sure, I'll go to town on some chips and dip, right? But it's another reason why I work out, because I want to counteract that. But yeah, I mean, I'm no health professional. What has worked for me is that stuff. I also found a big change in upping my protein and taking protein shakes before bed. I mean, I listened to a podcast once and that's what it told me to do. So that's what I mean, is it right? I don't know, but I started trying it and it worked. I started to see results. So I think it is trial and error. You can definitely hire someone that is a professional in that area. But I would say the biggest ones, cut out your sugar, reduce your pop intake, or don't drink it at all. Right? That's a killer. Deep fried foods and, the common sense stuff for sure. So.
You touched on some good points there. I actually am starting a challenge because I am a sugar freak. I fucking love my sugar. And that's why I got a gut and you don't. And in March, I told the wife I want to do 31 days, 0 sugar. And that's, again, you might laugh at that and be like, talk about sustainability or 0 to 60 in terms of that atomic habits. That's what I do. So and this has been a huge benefit, but also a detriment in my life. As you look at this podcast studio, I told my wife, I'm like, I want to start a podcast. And that gentleman that I told you, his name is Joe Fear, who does this for a living. He says, just do it on your phone. And I'm like, okay. And within 48 hours, I had 7 things in the Amazon cart and 4 things saved on Marketplace. And I told the wife I'm revamping our office. And I was like, I hadn't even fucking recorded anything. And that's just my style. Yeah. But that's something I want to do because I've cut out pop. I actually only drink water and coffee. Nice. And I usually put 2 servings of milk just to kind of like change the color. But then you go to find out and I read the label of some sugars, especially some of those like Fairlife ones, and some, it's like 9 grams of sugar. And I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, and it just, one thing that has changed for me that I would recommend to people is start reading labels. Oh yeah. And I actually had a comment from a person at work that said, oh, those are government propaganda. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, it's better than nothing. It's at least it's going to show some stuff, regardless of me dropping off the U of A and asking some fucking lab student to go through this shit with a fine tooth comb. Like, it's going to do something. Because before, when I didn't read labels and I went to the store on an empty stomach, I wanted to get in and out. It's that fast-paced lifestyle. Everything's geared towards convenience. Prepackaged foods, packaged ramen, all this other crap. And I feel, going back to everything we did, I think if people slowed down with their finances and, like you said, people sat down and gave it the attention it needs and the respect it deserves. I think if people did that with their fitness, I think if you sat down and said, where are you lacking? Where are you struggling? Are you a bigger person so you don't really need to gain? You want to lose strictly? Are you a smaller person so you want to put on mass? Are you in the middle so you want to kind of have a bit of both? I think you need to sit down and evaluate it, and you need to slow the fuck down. And you just kind of need to sit there and say, I don't need to buy the most expensive program and Google something and pick the first sponsored ad and pay my $39.99 monthly subscription. That's not what it's going to do for you. I think you need to really do some harsh self-evaluation and really kind of be hypercritical of yourself with some grace. But at the same time, like, I am a fat slob. Alfred, you do consume a lot of fucking sugar. Stop being dumb. Like, I think that's a big one. So, like, from your perspective, what you're saying is cut it out. But I think if people were to sit down and either like go the old route, write it down. You know, everyone's like, well, I'll put it in the notes on my phone. Write it down. Put it on pen to paper. Take away the technology. Take away the advertising. So that way, when we're talking about fitness, and me and you open our app and we have freaking Fitness Buddies sponsored ads start popping up on our social media, put pen to paper, and then maybe that will do it for you. Or maybe if you have a spouse or a brother or a friend, maybe have conversations amongst each other and be like, no holds bar, straight up, give me the top 3 things you think I need to work on. And I'll do the same for you, or something along those lines. I'm just spitballing here, but
there's a few things there I just want to touch on. So what I've found, and through research that other people have done that are smarter than me, is that your gut bacteria will crave more of it. So if you're constantly eating sugar, all it wants is sugar to feed it, right? So when you start cutting that stuff out, it's like if you're an alcoholic and you cut out alcohol, you're going to be in some sort of withdrawal, right? And it's going to suck. But that's the same thing when you cut out sugar and crap like fast food and stuff like that. And you're going to want it for a little bit. But then as soon as you start eating healthier, it changes everything. So, yeah, I mean, I'll power to you 30 days for sugar. I hope you do it, right? Maybe you reward yourself a little bit, but I think once you start reducing that, you won't crave it as much because of that reason. And I think to touch on another point you said, one of the biggest scams in the nutrition world is the calorie, right? And where people are like, oh, that's 200 calories, that's 300 calories. And so the calorie was born in I think World War I, when they had to ration food, and this lady wrote this book on the calorie, and basically their whole idea, I'm getting the story wrong, I'm sure, but the long and short of it is that they basically made people feel proud to reduce their calorie intake so they could feed the soldiers at war.
Oh shit.
So there's the fats, there's protein, and
carbs.
The carbs. So they all have a count. I forget what the count is, but for every 1 gram of protein, for example, it's 20 calories or something like that. So if something's 200 calories, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It could be full of protein, right? And so I think if people understand the difference between protein, fat, and carbs, and not all fat is bad, we need fat. So it's just like some basic, simple education on those things. I think of my mom when I was growing up, she went to Weight Watchers, and that was all they talked about was calories, calorie, calorie, calorie. And that's when you started to see the sugar-free or the diet pops and the sugar-free candies and all this kind of stuff, because there was no calories, but we obviously know what that stuff does. So yeah, it's crazy, because you're right. There is so much information out there, and what do you believe? Right. So I don't know what the right answer is, because I'm not in that field, but based on my personal experience, that's what I'd say.
Wow. If you would have told me that calories were a government conspiracy, which I already struggle with everything being government conspiracy, I was not ready for that. That's crazy, man. Dude, I love that. A couple more topics I want to talk about here is mental toughness. So I want to go back to this a little bit, but I want to bring it almost a little bit personal if you're willing to talk about it. I look at a person like you where you're at, and when we first met, marriage, I don't know if you had your youngest son yet or your oldest son yet when we first met. And I look at fitness and all this sort of stuff, and you're talking about it as it's so ingrained, and going back to financial discipline, fitness discipline, and mental toughness. I kind of want to ask if you're willing to share where you go, because so many people these days will come up with either an excuse or victimhood mentality, or that old phrase, I don't have time. I look at a guy like you that, full-time job, you do charity work, which we're going to touch on next. You go to the gym, you got 2 boys, you're now doing it as a single dad. Where do you go to mentally to want to continue to do this when life throws you a curveball such as a divorce, or life throws you a curveball as changing in the financial industry and people are now struggling more than ever? Where does Jarek go mentally to be like, I still want to do this? And we talk about delayed gratification. Like, what is your purpose, or what is your rationale behind, I still need to maintain these things of financial discipline, fitness discipline, being a good dude, continuing with the charity when I have every reason not to? Mm-hmm. Where do you go that you can tell people, like, this is why I do what I do, how I do it, when I do it, all that sort of stuff? Where does Jarek go?
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think growing up, some things happened in my life that definitely shaped me and helped me grow mental toughness. From a simple, but when I played hockey in Camrose, I mean, I was only like probably the only Chinese kid growing up, right? So sure, I dealt with some racial slurs and whatever, and I just shrugged it off, laughed it off. And so growing up in school and playing hockey, I just kind of grew up with people kind of picking at me, and I start to build this like mental armor. And looking back on it now, I think that's probably helped me a little bit in this area. But everyone has mental toughness. So for example, if this house was on fire and you come home and you think the girls are at home, you're not thinking like, hey, is that door unlocked? Maybe I should try the back door, right? You're busting in. You don't care. You're just going in to see if they're in there. That's mental toughness, right? And so I think what a lot of people lack is a vision in any area. It could be for their life in general. It could be for their fitness goals, their health goals, their financial goals, their relationship goals, and they lack a vision. And from that vision, it's hard for me to explain to you my vision in life, right? I can see it, but it's hard for me to actually tell you it. But I can tell you some goals and dreams that I have within my life.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right? And so I can touch on that, but it's easier for me to articulate some clearly defined goals and dreams. So from that though, what a lot of people have is what I call surface dreams. They're not deep enough. They're not emotionally tied to it. Oh yeah, it'd be nice to live in that house. It'd be nice to look like that. It'd be nice to drive that vehicle. It'd be nice to have that much money, but they don't invest enough in themselves to actually feel it. So they need to increase their hunger and desire in these areas. So if there's a reason why home builders build show homes, because people walk into the home and they see it, they feel it, they smell it, and they can imagine themselves living in it, right? It'd be easier and cheaper to just have the blueprint or the floor plans on the table. Here's kind of the carpet and the finishings and, buy a house. But when you get people in that environment and you get them to sit in the car, turn on the car, test drive it, you get their senses involved. So from that, what happens is that you increase your self-discipline. You just get more discipline. So if, let's just say I want to take the boys to Disneyland, okay? They're 5 and 7 now, and they obviously know what Disneyland is, but let's just say they've never heard of Disneyland. And I say, hey boys, let's go to Disneyland. They're like, what's that? I'm like, it's Disneyland. Like, let's just go to Disneyland. They're like, but why? Like, what is it? I don't want to go to Disneyland. But then I start showing them what Disneyland is all about. I show them the rides, I show them the characters, I show them the food and all that kind of stuff. I start to get them involved in it and their senses involved in it. And they're like, yeah, let's go to Disneyland. They're like, hold on, boys. We got to do some chores here. We got to make sure over the next 6 months that we clean up our room, that we brush our teeth, right? Now they're going to be a bit more self-disciplined because I've increased their hunger and desire in Disneyland. And they know the goal and the vision, right? So once you get self-discipline, what happens is that your self-respect starts to go up, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-worth, your self-image. If I'm going to the gym and I have this idea of who I want to be and who I want to look like and feel like and all this kind of stuff, and I start going there and do the reps, and my discipline is increased because I can picture what it is, then all that stuff's going to happen. I'm going to feel way more confident. My worth is going to go up. Right? See, habits are there because, we want to be successful. We want to save money. We want to whatever. But what I think habits do more importantly is that they're like little votes for the person that you want to become. So if you start showing up to the gym every single day and you're doing the reps and you're doing the workouts, you're like, yes, I'm an athlete. I'm in shape. Right? And so the end product, it's success, it's prosperity, it's fun, it's happiness. So it kind of just goes back to, what do people want, right? Get clear on it, increase their hunger and desire in it. You'll naturally increase your self-discipline in that area, and you'll feel better about yourself, and then you win in that area. So that's what I would say around mental toughness, is that I just kind of know why I'm doing it. I know why I'm going to the gym. I know why I'm doing the charity work. I know why I'm going to work, and it's just a vision for my life. And, doesn't mean I'm perfect. Doesn't mean I hit it every day. There's days, hey, I'm human. There's days I don't feel like doing stuff, right? But I just know that what I want in life, the vision I have, I'm more likely to achieve them if I have that. So
So what is that purpose, if you don't mind me asking? Because like I said, like when you're given all these curveballs, when something happens in life, you kind of separate from the wife, then COVID happens, you're kind of begrudgingly living together and trying to make it work, but at the same time, not really. Awkward when you bring a new gym partner home and you're like, we're just going to go upstairs for 5 minutes. And, you know, where does Jarek go mentally to be like, I got these 2 boys that I need to really show them how to do things. And that might be your purpose. And I know for me, my daughter's a big reason why I do certain things now. Daughters are different than sons. I imagine you're a lot harder on the boys than I am on the little princess, right? Just the nature of it, the way it goes. But where do you go mentally to continue to want to do the charity? I'm sure you don't do this by yourself. You have great partners and great people that help you and support you in this. And we're gonna touch on that right away. But I'm just really curious to kind of dive down. I don't mean to pry either. Feel free to stop me anytime. But just, yeah, like in your mind, like when you're at the gym and you're like, fucking both boys are sick. The exes drive me nuts. I got this charity thing tomorrow. I got no sleep. What is the one thing in your head that you kind of stick to and to be like, this is why I need to do this?
So it's a really good question. And for me, I think what I would say is that at the end of the day, when my boys are all grown up, I want them to say that my dad was awesome. And I want people that I work with, my clients, my friends, that I want them to say I was a good person, right? And so there's some other stuff that goes along with that, but I think it's what impact do you want to leave on the world? And yeah, I want to. Back in the fall, I was hanging out with 5 Navy SEALs for 3 days, which was kind of cool. And one of them talked about that he has, the reason why he just constantly works out is because he has an age 90 bucket list. So when he's 90 years old, he's got a bucket list of things he wants to do. Walk 5K, 20 push-ups, play with great-great-grandkids, whatever it is, right? So I'm like, this is really cool.
That is cool.
So it kind of shifted I'm pretty disciplined at the gym, but it just kind of gave me that little extra incentive that, yes, this is the reason why I'm working out, why I'm dragging my butt to the gym, why I'm suffering through this stuff, right? And, you know, hanging out with those guys, I think those guys are the most mentally tough people in the world.
Yeah.
I was asking one of them, I was like, how do you go into battle? Like, he's like, we go into battle knowing that we're dead. He's like, there's no way that I'm going into battle knowing that I'm going to talk to my wife or kids after this. I go into battle knowing that I'm dead. I'm like, that is freaking wild, right? And to give you an idea of like how tough these guys are, I asked one of them in his class how many people started the actual training. So it was 240. And so he kind of went through the different stages of the SEAL training. There was about, I want to say 6 or 7 different sections over a course of, I think it was 9 months or 12 months or something. And they lost the biggest amount of people during Hell Week. And so that was Bud's trainings. There's 3 sections and Hell Week is the first section. It's actually like 4 or 5 days. And that's when you intentionally have to drown yourself. You have to go to the bottom of the pool and essentially pass out. And so that's where a lot of people failed. So anyways, from his 240 class, only 9 graduated.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So these guys are just on a different planet of mental toughness. One of the things that I do to strengthen my mental toughness is the gym, doing hard things. I'm crazy on the Stairmaster. I just try to like do a crazy amount of stairs for time. And you just want to die and there's no stopping. So that's one of the things I do. Cold showers. I know you're into the cold, so you know what that's like, but just anything to just harden my mind and strengthen it, because life is hard, right? And if you expect life to be easy, life is going to be that much harder. But if you expect life to be hard and shit to come your way and shit to hit the fan, then you just know it's part of the recipe. It's part of the process. Yeah. I was expecting my kid to break his arm one day. I was expecting someone to pass away. I was expecting whatever, right? And it's part of the recipe of life that like, you're going to have bad days. You're going to, go through tough times. And if you're not mentally tough enough to handle it, then you spiral. I remember telling one of my business mentors when I first got separated, I was like, man, I can see how people go down this spiral of drugs and alcohol and, suicide, gambling, whatever it may be. Like, I can see how people can do it if they're not mentally tough upstairs. Like, if they don't have the capacity to handle these tough times, I see why people do it. Right. So yeah, I guess, I don't know what the question was. Sorry, Alfred.
I'm just, I think you kind of answered it when you said you want your kids to say that their dad was awesome and all that stuff. And I think you touched on, I think you laid out the blueprint as to how to get there. And then obviously it's very easy to use your kids as a motivating factor. I think people want to, I just think a lot of people fail in that aspect. I seen a really cool little like 10-second Instagram thing. I shared it about 2 months ago where this girl was working out and she said, most people say that they will die for their family. They'll say, I'll jump in front of a car, I'll die for my family. And she was like, well, how many people will say I will live for my family? You know, I want to be there as long as possible. I want to work out. I want to be as much of a contributing and kind of an icon to my future generations as possible. And that was really powerful for me because it's a mind flip, right? Yep. You're reframing your purpose and your why and your how. And I thought that was really cool. So I definitely think you answered it to a degree. So I appreciate that because that's some deep stuff. And not everyone's willing to share that type of stuff. So appreciate it.
And I think one of the thing is the slight edge. I just think of the slight edge. That's what, you know, if I keep missing days, I just know that, hey, I'm going down the wrong path, the wrong curve. So that helps me. It's just that philosophy of like, is this going to put me on the path going up or the path going down? So that's why I do it.
Yeah. I want to transition here to this charity that you do because I think it definitely needs to be mentioned and discussed. And I'd love for people to hear about it and how they might be able to get involved, how they donate when it's happening. Because I think it's happening right away here. Hey, so if you want to touch on that, feel free from maybe conception and origin, and then maybe where we're currently standing today.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I came up with the idea, must have been 12, 13 years ago. A guy with our company had a golf tournament that at that point had raised over $1 million for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And so I was like, it'd be kind of cool to do something like that. And obviously I loved hockey. So I was like, let's do a hockey game. And so came up with this concept. Let's play Edmonton office versus Calgary office. Our first game was in Sylvan Lake, and we ordered pizza after, had probably 7 silent auction items, and raised maybe $2 or $3 grand. And then we did it again the next year, and we did it in Calgary, and same sort of thing. And over the years, it just kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we kind of figured out what worked. And so basically, long and short of it was we play the game. It's a really bad to mediocre game, but that's not the point of the event. It's to get together afterwards. We have a reception. We have someone from the Stollery Children's Hospital, a family that has been, you know, a part of it, that have used the services, and they tell their story, and it's pretty heart-wrenching. And yeah, we just have a live auction, sound auction. We have entertainment. So we've had, you know, comedians, we've had hypnotists, dueling pianos. We had country singer Chad Brownlee. This year we have Lindsay L. She's also a country artist, CCMA winner, and a host of Canada's Got Talent. So yeah, we just have fun with it. It is rewarding. It is a lot of work, but I just think of like in my previous life, there's no way I could do something like this. And it's fun to give back and create relationships. And I love it. It's on April 6th this year. So it's in about a month. And usually in the last couple weeks leading up to it, that's when it gets a little stressful. And maybe I'm not the best mentally tough person at that time, but it's super rewarding as we're sitting at an event and seeing people having fun and donating a whole bunch of money and raising money for a good cause. So yeah, I couldn't do it with the team either that I have. So
yeah, if you want to give any shout outs to anybody, I mean, feel free, dude. No worries there.
Yeah. I mean, my committee I'll use their hockey nicknames, GG, Stumpy, Skoggy, and Timbit. Those are the guys, but they've kind of been helping out almost since the second year, third year, something like that. And yeah, it's a team effort. And sometimes I don't have the best ideas at times, and they kind of bring me down back to earth. And sometimes I have great ideas, and vice versa. We're figuring it out. And this is our 11th year. So I don't know. We kind of say, like in those last 2 weeks, we're never going to do this again. And sure shit, we do it every year. So we kind of forget what it's like, the hard work and the stress and the frustration, but it's for a good cause. So
I think you were saying that you've raised over $500,000 for the Stollery, but in total you've done over 600 and how much?
635, I think it is total for different charities. Yeah. 506 now for the Stollery. So I have a goal of donating $1 million to the Stollery, whether it be through the game or through personal efforts. And so we'll see. We got a ways to go, but yeah.
Yeah, the Stollery is near and dear to our heart. My wife and I, we have a daughter that's required the Stollery quite a bit, and they've been instrumental. That place is insane. We donate, I don't know how much money. I think we donate $5,000 a year off my paycheck through the company I work through. So that works out well. They're just fantastic. And yeah, we love that. Every time we walk through, we see names on the wall with I think it's platinum donors, gold, or whatever, however they classify donors. But yeah, it's an incredible place. And I'm growing up in Nova Scotia. We had something called the IWK. I don't know what that stands for, but it's the Children's Hospital there as well. And I have 2 older brothers, and we spent a lot of time in that fucking hospital, broken limbs and concussions and all the stuff. My mom could have made residency in there, no doubt. So that's pretty incredible, man. Because to find a cause, that's worthy. I think you couldn't have found a better one in Edmonton. So that's pretty commendable. And then for anybody who's listening that might maybe have the word that or the acronym that comes to mind is BHAG, BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. So I read a book that kind of had that in there and explained a little bit. When people have there's these unforeseen challenges that they couldn't have anticipated. And it could be something small, but it could be detrimental. Is there something in the duration from conception to now? What's been that biggest struggle that you find? Is it cold calling donors? Is it finding hockey players? Is it venue? What's something on your mind that's been kind of a consistent thorn that you've had to deal with that you weren't really anticipating? Or has it just gone relatively smooth? It's just a lot of hard work. I'm not sure, right? Just kind of curious if you can touch on that.
Yeah, there's always some small stuff that comes up. It's not like we've had someone like an entertainer cancel last minute or anything like that. Obviously we'd love to get more auction items, more sponsorship and whatever, but that is what it is. But this year we're kind of almost struggling with ticket sales for some reason, which is interesting because we're at the JW Marriott this year, which for the first time you'd think, would generate more traffic than the Fantasyland. But yeah, I don't know. It's more just work and time, and I do the artwork and all that stuff, so it's just time. And I wouldn't say there's any significant challenges, but maybe other people would. It's just part of the deal, right? I know what to expect, and when it happens, I'm not overly surprised. One of them was like, where's my ticket, where am I sitting? Like, just stupid shit. Like lack of common sense stuff, right? That drives me bonkers. That probably the hardest part is just dealing with people that should know how to be an adult, right?
That's fair. Yeah, people pay their whatever ticket price is, and then they expect the red carpet to be rolled out and all that stuff, and it's not how it works. That's not how anything in life works, let alone something like this. But yeah, that's funny. Dude, that's super commendable. Is there, what's the name of it? Where can people maybe find some information on this or maybe purchase some tickets? Yeah,
so our Instagram handle is WFG Hockey Classic. They can check out my personal Instagram page. They can get tickets through that, either or through that handle or through mine. We're kind of doing it old school. We did an online thing and found out it was chaos because once again, people are like, where's my ticket? And so anyways, we're doing these old school paper tickets. So people have to be an adult and keep track of their ticket like they did back in the day when they went to a hockey game or a concert. And so it's $155 to come and have a nice dinner at the JW and see a private concert by Lindsay L. And we have tables of 10 for $14.50 as well. So any contribution's great, whether it be a $20 donation to silent auction items to coming to support the event and hanging out with us. So yeah,
that's awesome, dude. I love that. April 6th, you said, correct? Mm-hmm. April 6th. Perfect. Yes, nice. No, that's awesome, dude. A couple of things I want to touch on here, and then I won't keep you too much longer here. Being a single dad, I have an older brother that is going down this road, and it's quite interesting in 2024 and beyond. For somebody who has accolades like this, I think on a surface level, I'm pretty comfortable with my sexuality. Yeah, you check a lot of boxes. And I'm sure like most things, on the surface level, is there some things that you have found to be struggling, things that maybe you weren't anticipating? Maybe you went on a date with a girl that wasn't a girl. I don't know. It's 2024, man. Let's go.
Hey, well, thanks. Thank you for boosting my ego there. I'm not ready to explore you yet, Alfred, but...
Well, not with that attitude, my God.
Maybe we'll see what happens when the mics get off, but no. It's been interesting. I've been separated since 2019, and I remember it was probably 2 months or so after my separation. I'm hanging with my buddy. He's like, hey, let's get you on the apps. I'm like, I'm not getting on the freaking apps. And prior to me, apps were not a thing when I met my wife. There might have been Plenty of Fish, but it wasn't a thing. Tinder wasn't a thing, Hinge, all this stuff. And so anyways, we get on this app and I'm like, this is crazy. And here's what I would say about dating today. People are so accessible. They're accessible on the dating app. They're accessible on social media. So I think men and women are both guilty of this, but they're always looking for greener grass. If I don't like your plaid shirt, I'm going to go find someone with a striped shirt. And it's nitpicky. And it's just because people are so accessible. back in the day when there wasn't an app and you had to meet somebody either through a friend or organically, just because maybe I'm not a big fan of your shirt, I'm going to give you a shot because I know how tough it is to meet people and, approach somebody and all that kind of stuff. So I would say that is probably it. I would say, and I think everyone says this, but it's cliche. I have high standards. I'm picky, that type of thing. But I know my worth. I know what I bring. It's a second chance for me, and I don't want to make it a third chance, right? So dating has been interesting. It's been fun. Got to meet some people, right? But haven't found the one just yet. I also find too, I kind of said this maybe in the first year of dating, is that I wanted to find someone after I kind of dated, girls or women without kids and women with kids, divorced, all kind of stuff. And I found that, or I had this feeling or this thought process that I needed to find somebody that was married and or had kids because they get it. And so I think from a single parent standpoint, it's very important to find someone with kids because they understand, right? If you're busy with your kids, they get it. They're not selfish with their time in terms of like, why aren't you hanging out with me? It's like, well, I got my kids, like chill out. Right. But also like if they've been divorced, they're probably of the same mindset that, hey, I don't want another divorce. Right. Like Ross and friends. I'm not 2 divorce guy or 3 divorce guy or whatever he says. I don't want that. And hey, marriage is tough. It is tough. And more than ever, is it tougher today? Because once again, people are accessible on social media. Someone flips open the app. These guys are having fun. They look like they love each other, even though it's probably opposite, right? And they don't like each other. They don't like spending time with each other. So I think it is hard to be married because of that. And if you're not with the right person or the right mindset to have a common vision and understand that it is going to be tough at times. And how are you going to handle those struggles? And so I've done a lot of work, I'd say, in terms of what I can do better in a relationship. I'm a big fan of Jay Shetty, so I like his work. So yeah, I'm taking my time. I'm not looking to, jump into marriage, but I believe in it. I think that if you find the right person and you gel good and you can handle conflict good and you have a similar vision and goals in life, then yeah, you can have a loving marriage for sure. So yeah, like you've been married how long?
It was 8 years in July. So coming up on 9 years.
Congrats.
Appreciate it.
So, obviously it's gotta be tough living with you. So what is like it, but
have you texted my wife? Like what the fuck? Like,
but you can probably attest to this that, yeah, it's not all puppy dogs and ice cream and rainbows. Right. And so like, I'm curious, like what would you say has helped you guys kind of get through some tough times?
Oh man, I'm an outlier. So I met my wife in high school and been with her ever since. So that's very rare these days, right? Sure. So I think that is my recipe for success. And I'll explain that a little bit. Basically, what I think the problem is, and this whole bullshit equality crap that's going on in society where people are afraid to acknowledge that men and women are different. I think for women especially, the more experience they have with men, they create this impossible metric of a man, almost like Lego man. They have this fucking bin, and the more pieces you have to pick from, you'll want to pick this person like, okay, who's the best in bed? Who makes the most amount of money? Who's tallest? Who has the best genetics? Who has a rich family? And they'll say like, well, I want a guy that kind of touches each one of those quadrants. And it's like, so you want nobody. Okay, cool. Like, and that's the problem. Whereas I think men are over simplistic. We put so much value in one or two things. It's like, I want her to stay home and bake bread all day. It's like, nobody does that these days. Or I want her to have the best body with the best boobs and the best ass. And it's like, okay, but she's going to bring a lot of baggage. It's like, we are oversimplistic and women are overcomplicated. And as we both gain more experience and as society does, we're distancing ourselves from really what's going to make us happy. So I've been very fortunate that the things that my wife does is exactly what we like. She's as advertised, which is exactly what I want. I don't want a lot of external influences on her. She's very grounded in her values. She embraced the stay-at-home mom thing for a few years while our daughter was going through some health stuff. I wanted that. She prioritized family. That gave me purpose and value. are there things that I have buddies that, you know, they sleep down the train of women or all this stuff, and you look at it and you're like, well, society tells me that that's kind of cool. That's what a player does. That's what, you know, Andrew Tates of the world do. And then I look at that and I'm like, damn. And then about 5 seconds later, I'm just like, that sounds exhausting. I was like, that does not sound fun at all. And I think going back to when you talked about how you were raised, that's exactly how her and I were raised. We were raised in a stable household. It's not going to be all sunshine and rainbow. But at the end of the day, when I come home and she understands what my love language is, which is acts of service, and I come in and there's, say, a meal on the table, and my daughter's happy to see me because my wife has propped it up that dad's coming home. And it's not this whole drama bullshit where it's like you get handed a baby at the front door and it's like, I'm heading the fuck out of here. It's like, that's not for me. Some people want that. Some people want their own space. They're kind of there to create a family, or maybe they don't even want kids. But for me, the sauce has just been, we've been as advertised since day one. And we haven't allowed a lot of external influences to disrupt our relationship. We've changed a little bit with time, but I think we've also, in the last 4 years especially, our communication has been on point. And I talked about this in my podcast episode with her, is it wasn't 4 years ago where we were voting for different political parties. We didn't have the same mindset, and I was fine with that. She's her own woman. Like, I have my own positions and opinions, but now we're realizing that the more cohesive we are on really important topics and having those discussions, right? Like, what's your position on God? What's your position on money? What's your position on sex? What's your position on our family member that's doing some of this crazy shit that we kind of need to discuss because it's going to become a problem? We're not afraid to have those conversations. And that's a massive one, is now our relationship. Yeah, we've been married for 8.5 years, but I feel like our maturity level with how we respect each other is 25, 30 years. And it has to be, because there's too much on the line. I look at what divorces do, especially to men. It's a fucking train wreck. And we can touch on that. I've seen it to a family member of mine. I've seen it to friends. It's fucking crazy. We have a family acquaintance that's going through divorce right now. His wife was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. And they were in a divorce proceeding, and there's rules, and people may not know about Alberta, how we have a no-fault divorce, meaning if you find, a woman or a guy in bed with 3 other dudes just having at it, videotaping it, doesn't matter. It's 50-50. It's like, what the fuck? And they were talking about maintaining quality of life. So this woman was a stay-at-home mom. She got her nails done this much time, and she wasn't being greedy, accolades to her. She wasn't trying to, over milk the cow. She just laid out the truth and evidence. And then he had mentioned something to I think it was a mediator or arbitrator, and he said, okay, you're putting all these financial numbers down about what I need to supply. And this was a female moderator, so it worked out in him trying to make the point. He said, okay, so would you agree that a stay-at-home mom brings a lot of value to a family? Cooking meals, how much is it to eat out every day? How much is it to hire a cleaner? These are things that a stay-at-home mom does and a stay-at-home wife does, and all this sort of thing. He's like, so, and I don't know who was the one to initiate the divorce, and really it's irrelevant, but he said, so where's my standard of life? Because if I get called in for an overtime, or I have an opportunity to head out of town and make additional money, and I got to hire a babysitter, I have to pay for that out of pocket, but she gets funded for that. So there's a mismatch of the scale here of consideration, because women especially will be the first ones to tell you how much unpaid labor they do if they're stay-at-home moms. They'll be the first ones to do it. Yeah. They'll be the first ones to say, oh, we get paid 77 cents on the dollar, that whole bullshit scam. But it's not considered for men because everything is so fucking monetary. Everything is about dollars and cents. Where's the receipt? It's like, well, I can't fucking provide a receipt for my wife feeding me 5 days a week when I'm an absolute banger and I'm putting together a charity for sick kids. Is that fucking considered? No. Yeah. And so to go back to that, I think for me, my wife and I prioritize this so much because we both know what divorce does. From a statistics, I know what the outcome of my daughter is if we're not a married couple. And does that mean that I take it on the chin at times? Certainly. I won't compromise, but I never let it get to that point. If my wife is doing some dumb shenanigans, I'll be the first one to say, you probably want to correct that behavior. And the same thing, when she says it to me, I don't take it personal. She's like, honey, you're working a lot of overtime lately. I don't say like, well, I'm providing for this family and I don't do that shit. I'm like, you know what? You're probably right, babe. Let's sit down. Give me a couple days because I'm still in the thick of it. Work is crazy. I need to prioritize this, but let's maybe set up a compromise. Maybe in a couple of weeks we'll head out of town, or maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll do something and I'll stop trying to provide you with just financial means. I'll bring my presence because that's her love language. And most women's love language is connection, right? Is human interaction. So that for me, in a nutshell, we take it serious because society is ruthless. when things don't work out the way they want to, from a legality, from a financial, from all this stuff, it'll wreck you, basically. I know people that have had to work additional 10 years because of a divorce, and it completely destroyed their retirement and all this. So for me, I think we just give each other respect 100%. We'd never take an initial statement personal, and I would actually implore this to most people, and this actually came from my daughter's very first soccer league when she was 5 years old. We have a 24-hour rule. When anything gets emotional, when anything, something that's really on our mind and really needs to get out. Now, mind you, there are certain things that have to be handled immediately. There's no doubt about it. Certain things that need to be discussed right away. But for the most part, if it's something where my wife's been on her phone and really lacking for a few days, or we really haven't had talks, or maybe the intimacy is lacking, and you're kind of emotionally charged about it, where maybe you wanted to make the first move and you just got fucking the door slammed on you, we give it 24 hours. And then after 24 hours, you eliminate immediate emotion and you apply logic and reason and also consideration for the other person's perspective. And there's a much higher positive outcome when we implore that. We do it with our daughter too, but with our marriage especially, the 24-hour rule has been a game changer.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with communication. I think that's the biggest thing with relationships is communication, because someone could say something one way and they take it the wrong way, and the kitchen sink gets brought out, man. Like it's crazy. So it's nice to hear that you got a solid relationship, because there's a lot out there that don't, and it's sad today, but just the world we live in. And I think the stat has got to be close to 70% of marriages end in divorce. I think it's close to 50, they say, but that doesn't include second marriages. So if you gotta be right on your person, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's why the dating pool is so tough nowadays, is I think men are disincentivized to get married, and men or women are overly incentivized for the financial component of it, is the security component of it. You haven't actually worked on your foundation. Why do you want to get married? Why do you want to get the state involved? Right. If you really, I was actually watching a video of my favorite soccer player, but also online personality, Ibrahimovic, Zlatan. The guy's a legend. And he's been with the same woman for like 24 years. And he proposed to her in 2021. And she said no. And she's like, why do I need to be married to you to be with you? She's like, it's fine. And then, of course, the interview, the way Zlatan is, he joked. He's like, will you ever do it again? He's like, no, she only gets one chance and now it's done. And all this funny stuff. Yeah. But it was humbling to hear that. And from a male perspective, I feel like not being married from a financial component, or maybe having an ironclad prenup, it keeps women accountable. And it also keeps men accountable. If I want this partner to really build up my life and have clear expectations of what, the value you bring, because some marriages don't have kids. Mm-hmm. For me and my wife, kids are a big thing, right? That's a massive one. But if you don't, and you do, so this is applicable to you, I think it just keeps women from just getting influenced by society. And I feel like that's more common than ever, is, a woman will sit there and maybe you're in the shit. Maybe you're not abundant. Maybe COVID happened and, got laid off, or maybe interest rates force you to sell your dream home. These things are happening. Like, this isn't like me coming up with a fucking ghost story. This shit's happening every damn day. And then she sees friends on social media getting their nails did. They just bought the new Escalade. And she's like, man, what the fuck is this clown that I'm with? He can't provide shit. But it's like, this guy's like the best dad ever. This guy's like the best dude ever. Or, Jarek, why are you spending so much time in this charity? That's not me. And all. It's like, if you're not in line on that stuff, 100%. Right? And it's super, super important. And nobody talks about this stuff. Nobody talks about this stuff because it's a misogynistic, or, you're being unfair to women, or you don't understand, or you need to consider that. It's like, when I'm considering a life partner, there's nothing that's off the table. Nothing. Mm-hmm. If I can't talk about your family because of some bullshit that's happening, or the fact that they're not involved, or the fact they treat you like shit, or they're life suckers, or maybe they're great people and I want to prop them up. If you're going to tell me that something, a part of your life, is off the table, bye. Right. It has to be, because you can't have demons in the closet. You cannot have demons in the closet. Everyone has hidden shit. My wife might eat a bag of chips and hide it on the table, or I might sit there and grab a can of pop and she hears the click and I'm like, fuck. Yeah. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about big adult bullshit, right? Somebody's like, I really don't like Jarek's kids. His boys are crazy and rambunctious and I can't handle this. It's like, that's not non-negotiable. If you can't handle that and have a conversation with me, and me talk to my boys, and I'm using this as an example. I'm not trying to attack or anything, but I'm just using that as an example where somebody might look at that today as an excuse or a reason to like have a little bit less kind of a relationship with you. It's like, that's not non-negotiable. Yeah. If you can't handle that, you're done. And on to the next, because that's what us men do, is like, we're a fucking speeding train. It's like, get on, enjoy the ride. We'll get you there quick, or walk.
Yeah,
Those are your fucking options, man. Straight up.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the financial component. You know, a single parent trying to, maybe they're renting or whatever, like to pay their bills. It's easy to be like, oh, we could be double income. Could you imagine how much money? They'd get together for the wrong reason, because it's convenient. And so, yeah, that's a big, I mean, divorce is one of the biggest financial devastators out there. So it sucks, but.
So if you don't mind me asking, do you think if you found the right woman, a second marriage would occur, or do you think you'd leave the legal system out of it? I'm curious about this because I have somebody who's single right now that they were with somebody for a while and then it didn't work out, and they were talking about kids and talking about marriage and it just didn't work out. And now their mindset has completely shifted, and they've just kind of realized that, like, well, most of the women that I go with, because they're getting older, they're kind of getting younger, because being with a woman my age, like, you know, if they had kids, their kids are out of the house, where I still have kids in the house. Mm-hmm. And they're looking at younger. It's like, man, they all want to get married and all want to maybe have kids. I'm done. Yeah. Like, I'm done with that. And it's terrible to think, but I truly feel that once you get to a certain age, whether you've been married or you've never had a successful relationship, maybe you're on the cusp and it just didn't work out and you've never actually gone through the divorce component of it, I feel like you almost look at marriage and kids and these lifelong commitments as liabilities. Like, you start changing your frame, right? Because it truly is that. You're always thinking in the back of your head. And I think that's also a detriment to men, is that's our exit strategy. Mm-hmm. That's our exit strategy not to commit. That's our exit strategy not to, really blossom a relationship into what it can be and have these difficult conversations. Because you're just like, if she just fucks around, I'm gone. If she's acts a fool, I'm out of here. Like, one of those things. And there might be a control component to that, because the most men do make more money than women, or do bring more of the economic stability to a relationship. But it's crazy, man. I feel blessed that I'm not in that situation. I pray it never gets there. I don't ever see it happening, but I mean, fuck, anything can happen. But yeah, I can't imagine, man. So kudos to you for handling it. Maybe a real quick one, and I don't know if this might be something for all the single dudes out there, is what's been the best resource for the highest quality women that you've kind of found? Is it the gym? Is it Bumble? Is it Tinder? This might be an advertisement for an ad. I'm not sure, but.
Yeah. So as I started dating some women and hearing some stories, I'm almost like, this is my competition. Some of the shit that these guys do or say or pull, it's mind boggling. Obviously, if you can meet someone organically or through friends, then I think that's the best way. If you got a reference, right, that's the best way. Cause you just know like who they are and whatever, as opposed to swiping on an app. And it's so superficial. But I mean, it's kind of what it is. Oh, it's like, here's some pictures, here's a little blurb, and everyone can say anything, but like, you're kind of almost looking at the picture. Am I attracted to this person? Right. And then you go from there. And so I've had good results, good in quotation, meaning that I've met people at the gym that I've gone on dates with, that I've dated. I've met people on the app that I've gone on dates with and I've dated. So, I think you just got to put yourself out there. I think that prior to me getting in business, it was harder for me to talk to women. After being in business, having kids, married, like I've gained confidence. I'm in the best shape of my life. So that also helps with talking to women, right? Knowing your worth.
Yeah, they kind of like that shit.
Yeah, that helps. So I don't know. I mean, what's worked for me is just open your mouth, right? I think a lot of women out in the world, they would like to be approached and they're not, right? Because people don't want to get rejected. Right. It's the number one reason why people don't open their mouths to like say, hi, how are you? My name is Jarek. Right. And if they say no, then so be it. You're still going to live. Sure, you might take an ego hit, but it's a numbers game, right? You got to run some numbers. Not everyone's going to say yes. So yeah, I think you just got to find out what you want. I mean, if you're like, hey, I want a wife one day, but you don't know what that wife looks like, then it's going to be tough. So for example, if you're into 6-foot blondes, right, and you walk the mall, you're going to see that 6-foot blonde. It's called the reticular activating system. So whatever you focus on expands. And once you kind of have an idea from essentially the minute I was divorced or separated, I made a list in my phone of like what I want. If I could paint or build the perfect woman and wife, here's what she would look like. And so I know that there's not someone that fits that bill. But if I can check off the most boxes in this list, then that's a pretty good thing, right? So if you don't know what you're looking for, that's going to be tough to find a mate. But if you do know what you're looking for, then I think you'll find it eventually. So
have you found that there's a lot of common traits a lot of single women have nowadays that you weren't really anticipating, or maybe that they don't possess? Like maybe you're looking for a girl with a bit of sexual temperance, maybe that's invisible, or, you know, like what is it where you were just like, there's this one line I had on my list and she don't exist, like cross, gone, that's never happening, or vice versa? Is there something that just the plethora that they have? This isn't my area, so I'm really curious.
Every woman, I swear to God, every woman has tattoos and has a dog. I don't know if
I would have guessed a cat, bro. There's no cats got to be more popular than dogs, bro.
At least on the apps, it's like must love dogs. I have a dog. You have to like my dog. You have to be best friends with my dog. Or like, so like it's so uncommon to find someone that doesn't have either. Not that that's like a thing on my list. But
I was about to say, I was like, you fucking hate dogs, bro? I was like, what's going on here?
That's not a thing on my list, but just like, but it does throw a wrench into things. It's like, hey, I'm dating you. You got a dog? Okay, frick. It's like childcare. You got to find a doggy sitter. Like, so yeah, that's not on my list, but that's what comes to mind, that like every woman has a dog or tattoos, and it's just funny. I think it just goes back to like people looking for greener grass. That's what I think it is. They're not fully committed. They're not fully in, and they're kind of exploring. Right. So yeah, it's an interesting world, man.
Cool, man. We're going to close this one because this has been going for a bit here. So appreciate your time today as always. Is there anything else you wanted to expand on while we were here? Anything else you wanted to kind of dive into a little bit?
I mean, no, this has been interesting. It's been a cool experience. Like I told you, you took my V card. How about that?
Yeah, there it is. Right, let's go. Let's go.
But it's crazy to think that this is only, like, what do you say, 8? 6?
This is episode 8. Yeah, episode 8.
Yeah, you're a pro.
I appreciate that, man.
Your voice is just way better than mine. Than I can sound in my. I can hear the voice in my headphones right now.
Well,
so
practice makes perfect. You'll come on here with your future wife sometime too for another episode. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, where can people find you? Where is something that you want to plug? Anything you want to put? I'll include some stuff in the description of the episode, but is there anything you want to shout out, person, thing?
Yeah, probably just Instagram is the best way to reach me if you want to get hold of me. I think my contact info's on there somewhere through links. I'm not too sure. But send me a message, and that's probably the best.
Cool.
Find me at the gym. Find me at the.
Let's go.
I won't tell you which gym, but you can just. Yeah, you'll
be swatting them off, bro. It'd be a flood going through the door. Right. Dude, it's been super fun, man. I love some of the topics we've discussed. It's been real. It's been, current, which I really appreciate. We haven't really been living in the past. Definitely some modern 2024 stuff. So appreciate it. And dude, best of luck with that charity, man. That's fantastic. I think that's great. I would say that we would be going, but my wife and I are in Disney World. We're going to Florida. So nice. Yeah, right at that time we fly out that day. So, but yeah, I'll see what I can do maybe for a small dono or something. We'll definitely support you in any way we can, man.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thanks very much. And for anybody listening, catch you guys in the next episode. Peace. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Unmodern Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also like and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Unmodern Podcast. Do you have suggestions for future guests, or if you're interested in being a guest yourself, please visit unmodernpodcast.com. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode.